Hi, this is Nam from Easy Sunday Club,
Hi, this is Kathy.
and today we're going to talk about licensing. We're going to talk about just the basics of what is licensing, how to find companies to license your work, the process of licensing your work, and we're going to talk about Kathy's own experience with licensing her pufferfish artwork, which is featured right here. So let's get to our first part. Kathy, what is licensing?
So licensing in layman's term is you are giving permission for another company to make products with your art for a certain period of time.
For money.
Yes.
In exchange for money.
For money, not just for brand mentions or exposure. Yeah, and those contracts typically last between 1 to 5 years. The ones I've done are in the 1 to 3 year range.
So there's two types of licensing agreements that you can get as an artist. The two most common ones are, the first is direct, where you have a direct relationship with the company licensing your work. And the second is when you go through an intermediary company or a licensing company. They license your work and they have a catalog of clients that they will pitch your work to those clients. So Kathy, tell us a little bit about your experience with direct, and tell us about a little bit about your experience with the intermediaries.
So I'm gonna be upfront and honest that this video is not about the direct contracts because I have no experience dealing with the brands directly. Those are always daunting to me, and those are typically what artists think about when they think about licensing, is having a direct contract with Target or Anthropologie. I do have experience with the second one that you're talking about, and the reason why we want to make a video is because I don't think that's known out there, and I do think it's a great opportunity for artists, or especially independent artists making with their own businesses, to try to create a additional stream of income that's relatively passive.
Through the intermediary companies,
Yeah,
right?
so I guess to elaborate on what an intermediary company is, the companies that I work with, they typically are publishing companies or wholesale companies to those big brands. So a couple of brands I work with through these companies are Home Goods and Bed Bath & Beyond. And it's just a great way to make passive income without having to deal with the ins and outs of production and shipping and inventory.
How do you find these companies?
Yeah, that's always the big question, right? So with the two main ones I've worked with, one of them, I found them through outreach by email, and the second one is through a referral, fortunately. I want to say, there are other ways to find them. So let me just bring it back up. If you are willing to spend money going to trade shows, there are licensing shows. The big one that everyone knows is Surtex in New York. But if you're like me and live on the West Coast, going to New York for a week and paying for entrance and hotel, all of that isn't exactly cost efficient, especially if you're kind of in the first years of your business, right? And the second option I know of is finding an agent. So they're kind of an intermediary too, but they're not obviously producing canvas art with your products on it. They're helping you find these direct licensing contracts that we talked about in the beginning. But from our experience talking to a few agents, they have a higher standard in terms of who they're willing to work for. Usually they're not going to give you time of the day unless you have reached a certain brand equity,
yeah.
Or just like a very strong presence or certain like sales to prove that you have clout to work with these brands directly. So I'm talking to the little guys out there who want that passive income from licensing, but just don't know that there's other ways of doing it. I just want to add that when you search for these licensing opportunities, don't search for licensing art licensing companies, because most likely you're gonna get a bunch of licensing agents. There's no harm in reaching out to them. Maybe you are ready to work with an agent, but in my case, when I first started out, I had to search for certain art in your industry. So in my case, it's like nursery art or I don't know, landscaping, floral art. And when you find these websites that sell work from different artists, most likely they've licensed art from them, or wholesale. But there's only one way to find out, by reaching out to them.
So let's say you are able to cold email a company, they show interest in your work. How does the process work? Like, what happens next? How does the contracting work? What are the main parts of the contract? How does your art actually get produced and end up in a store like Bed Bath & Beyond?
Yeah, I think a contract could be a whole new video, but just to keep this video tight. The main terms of a licensing contract is the duration, like they talked about, the payout, what the royalty look like. So an example of contract for that I've signed is, it would be a 7% payout for all the orders that were placed by the big brands, right? If you think 7% is so little, but those brands usually buy in bulk cases of the same product, that it makes up for it. And just to give you an idea of payout, I think one of the bigger checks I got just for one type of one piece of art that were sold in cases was about $1,600 from a quarter, which isn't like get rich, you can retire kind of money in any way, but it's still nice because it's passive and it's based on something that you already made.
Yeah. So it's like not heavy lifting on your part, right?
No, yeah, you just send in the image and wait for the check. But of course, you have to get selected. That's name of the game.
And then now that your art is actually in these stores, can be like a trickle down marketing effect, right?
Yeah. So other than, of course, we're all advocates for getting paid for your work, but one of the trickle down advantage of licensing your work is exposure, because nowadays all the artists promote their work online, but there is something to be said about seeing your work at a big brand store like Bed Bath & Beyond. And if you go on the website, they also mention my name, which is great that these brands are doing that now. They're helping to elevate awareness for these artists. So I've known to have generated sales to my online shop as a result of people encountering or discovering my art in stores, because they email me and tell me that they did. So yeah, I think that's a big plus.
So now we want to talk about kind of have a real world example of how Cathy was able to license one of her artwork. So we have this puffer fish watercolor, and Cathy, could you tell us the process you went through to license this piece?
Yeah, so this is licensed by a company that I already had a relationship with, one of the intermediary companies. They selected this piece. I periodically sent them new work, or they will ask for it and I give them the pieces I'm willing and are available to license. They picked this piece to pitch to Bed Bath & Beyond. Bed Bath & Beyond likes it and they have licensed it and are now they've listed it on their website. So it depends on when you see this video. If you're seeing it around the time it comes out, you'll find this pufferfish on the Bed Bath & Beyond website and some of their stores. They never give away what locations, so we kind of have to do treasure hunt. But it's really cool when you see your own work on a huge brand's website.
I think as an artist, it's probably the closest thing to hearing your song on the radio, right?
Oh yeah, it's equivalent of that.
Yeah. Kind of closing this off, what's kind of your final advice to artists out there who are looking to license their work?
Yeah, so the most important one, I have two pieces of advice. First one is put together a cohesive portfolio of work and make it seen. Make them seen either on Instagram. If you don't have your website, if you do have an online portfolio, in my case, I do post new art regularly on Instagram. So I believe there are people from some of those companies who are always on Instagram, like scouting for new work or new talent from new artists. And if they see something they like that I posted, they will reach out and ask if it's available for licensing. So it's just kind of like tossing out fish bait, because you never know what resonates with people.
Puffer fish bait.
Not quite. I don't think pufferfish is ever used as a bait, but nice try. And what was I saying? Second one, online portfolio. So in my case, since I've been doing wholesale for a while, I have a line sheet, which is like a product catalog. And I just remove all the pricing on there so that it would just be pages of images. And then I take out the images that I don't want to license, and I sort of easily make it into a catalog for licensing. But no, if you have Instagram, post often, and all of that jazz. The second one is more complicated, and I want to leave it to the end because it's scary, and that would be, or it's intimidating, which would be register for a trademark for your work or for your brand. That would just, I don't know, you can probably articulate this a lot better than I can. Because
when you go to, when you trademark your work, do it at the U.S. Patent and Trade Office website. So go there. They have a lot of tutorials, and I'm pretty sure there's other tutorials out there as well. Walk through step by step, but you want to do that just so you can protect your intellectual property.
And to be honest, we didn't do this with our first contract. It didn't come back to bite us in our ass yet. We have trademark now, which just adds an additional peace of mind. But like I said, have work ready before you deal with all the other things, the legal stuff, because those will fall into, you'll get to them once you're forced to.
And that's pretty much it. We're always trying to improve and get feedback. So leave comments, leave questions. Visit our Instagram and our easysundayclub.com website. And we hope to see you soon.